Sometimes it can be good to go back to the basics. When it comes to writing, it can be easy to get carried away and lost in the process that you forget the basic elements of crafting a story. The planning and preparation stages are fundamental when beginning to write a story. However, sometimes it can be just as beneficial to return to these stages later in your writing process, especially if you're a pantser writer like myself. For those of you who are new here, hello, I am Katie K. I'm a published author and writing is my main job. I am currently working on an adult fantasy novel, having previously published YA, and for this channel I have been referring to this as Project Red. Now, if you've watched some of my previous writing vlogs, then you will know that I'm currently on the 4th draft of this novel. However, as today's video suggests, today we are going back to the preparation and planning stages of writing a novel. I'm the type of writer who likes to plot and plan as I write. I start off with a basic idea of what I want to write and then just kind of get going and see what happens. Then after each draft, I go back to the prep stages and replan with the new knowledge of what this draft has given me. And fortunately, just as I was starting to go back to this stage, Reedsy reached out for this collaboration video on their writing masterclass course. For any of you that aren't familiar with Reedsy, they are a company that really is a go-to place for writers. Their website is full of writing articles, free planning worksheets, a directory of editors, designers, and more. They have so many great tools to help you on your writing journey, and in September they'll be releasing their Masterclass course. This is an in-depth course that is designed to help you develop your writing craft. With best-selling and award-winning instructor, weekly check-ins, feedback and live masterclasses with guest authors and coaches, this course aims to help you finish your first draft of your novel in 101 days. If that's something that you are interested in, please feel free to click the link in the description to find out a bit more. For this collab, I had access to the Week 0 videos, the prep sessions before you begin embarking on your writing journey. These sessions discuss the 5 P's to consider before you begin writing, and these are the pitch, the protagonist, the plot, the point of view, and the place. And honestly, as I'm on my 4th draft right now, and do not want to be starting a new novel at present, I wasn't sure what these sessions could offer me. However, there were elements in these sessions that were really fascinating and that I could rework to suit where I am in my current writing process. In terms of point of view, whether you're writing in first person or third, and what tense you're going to be using with either, and place, the setting and the time of your novel, these were elements that I'm already comfortable with, so I didn't need to use them in my current prep session. However, there were tasks in the other sessions that I thought could be just as useful for me now going into draft 4 as it would be for those starting the first draft, so I'm going to test some of those out during this planning session. I've discussed this in other videos before, but I'm not always great at planning my novels in an organised manner. I love a good mind map, and these are great for working out my ideas, but when it comes to character and plot development, it can be handy to have a slightly more structured approach. When it comes to characters, particularly the protagonist, I have never found that character profile method of developing a character works for me. Perhaps this is because I haven't worked out the right questions for what I want to uncover about my character, or perhaps my style of planning doesn't suit the structured approach of a profile. During the course, one of the things that was discussed was different methods of developing your knowledge of your characters. In particular, the instructor looked at David Suchet's detailed notes on playing Poirot. Rather than building like a character profile, he kept this list of small details about the character, which he added to as he continued to play the role. This idea really suits my style of planning, As I'm in the later draft stages of this novel, I already know a lot about my characters, so this concept of accumulating a list of details about them feels like the perfect way to develop and hone my knowledge of the characters. The details on this list are quite random, from like my character's eye colour to the food they like, to all these little things that make up a person and will hopefully lead a well-rounded protagonist. A character's wants and needs are the goals that your character has and the desires that stop them from drifting away. It's what they are chasing throughout the novel, and these are important factors to know before you write your first draft, as well as for me working on my fourth. For me, this next draft that I'm writing involves quite a bit of restructuring, so clearly writing out my character's wants and needs will help me ensure that the narrative remains structured around these goals and that I don't mess up the causality of the plot. Characters change as the story progresses, and the more they struggle or thrive for something, the more we learn about who they are. During the course, one of the things that was discussed is how each chapter should advance the story in some way, whether it's plot-driven advances or character-driven. For people who like to plot before they write their novel, there was a task on plotting out the first few chapters with this idea in mind. This definitely wouldn't work for me in a first draft, as that is not how I work. I like having the freedom to write as I go. There was a plot twist at the end of the last draft that even I didn't see coming, and I like writing like that. It keeps me engaged. However, I like this idea for my current draft. I already have the outline of where I want the plot to go, so my plan is, after I write a chapter, I will sit and ask myself, how does this advance the story? Rather than planning it out in advance, I want to use this question as like a mode of reflection, which I can refer back to after I write each chapter and make sure that I'm still on the right track. Planning and plotting can take many different forms and styles depending on what type of writer you are. What's important is that you do enough for you. If you, like myself, only need the basics before jumping into a first draft, then go for it. If you're the type of writer who likes to thoroughly plan out their novel for a year before they write, then that's also great too. Do what works for you. I'm pleasantly surprised with how much planning I was actually able to get done and how much these prep sessions have actually been able to help with it. The small details list was really useful. It's such a simple thing really, but it's just something about it not having to do the whole character profile layout. It just really works for me. I really like this small list thing. I might actually have to get the book the Poirot actor wrote so I can read properly his whole small list of details about the character, because it sounds fascinating. And yeah, I think it's a great way of working out more about the character, and I think because you can also just have the freedom to add to it as you go along, it just feels like nothing has to be too set in stone, which I often find with a profile it feels, and sometimes with some set sort of types of planning, stuff feels a bit too set in stone for me, and I like having the freedom to play with. There's actually one more task from the course that I want to try out, and it's actually from the very first session, but I thought it might be the most challenging, so I have saved it until last, and this is to write an elevator pitch for my novel. This is a short one-sentence pitch to explain what your book is and to sell it. I actually thought I already had this, as since the very beginning of creating this story, I've always had what I considered to be the tagline for this book, which I've kind of been working from. However, whilst this might hook the reader in to read the blurb, this course kind of taught me that it's not really a pitch for the book. Writing a pitch can be a bit tricky. Like I said, I've been working off the tagline for this story since it started, and whilst this kind of has worked for me, I found that turning it into a pitch was actually quite a great way of working out what was at the heart of this story, not kind of the themes or the style or anything like that, but the story itself. What was it about? What's its conflict? Its unclear outcome? Just like the specifics of the story. Once I got into it, it wasn't too difficult, not quite as much as I thought. Perhaps because I know my story well at this point. I feel like if I had to do this at the beginning, I would have been a little stuck. But equally, your pitch can change as your story progresses and takes shape. The idea of it is just to give you a starting point to work from. And that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Reedsy for this collaboration. I had a lot of fun with these prep sessions for the Masterclass course, and if it is any of interest to you, then click the link in the description. It'll take you to the course page where you can have a proper look at the details and see if it's right for you. Until next time, my lovely bookish friends.